Mr. Brock, you had an issue you'd like to raise?
Yes,
Floor is yours.
I'd like to move a motion, Chair, thank you. Motion to read that in relation to the press release issued by Minister Champagne on June the 4th, 2024, announcing the resumed funding to SDTC projects under reinforced contribution agreements signed with ISED. The committee orders the production of all such contribution agreements and that they be deposited with the clerk of the committee within 14 days following the adoption of this motion. The purpose behind...
Let me just pause and you'll have the floor again. Could you or a member of your team submit the motion to the clerk? And it is even better.
That motion?
Sure. Let me hear a few words from Mr. Brock, and then it'll just give us a sense. And
Well,
would you rather?
my words will be longer than a few, so perhaps we should suspend
We'll take that chance. All right.
I can have the floor again.
I will suspend for approximately 5 minutes. If I see interaction, well, I'll tell you what. If I see interaction, I'll come see you. 5 to 10. But if I see just people sitting around, yeah, I know. But I'll read the room. But I will call us back within 10 minutes.
Yes.
No. I will. Mr. Brock has a long opening. I'll call us back within 10 minutes. Mr. Brock, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so there is, in our respectful opinion, on the Conservative bench, great value and relevancy to this particular motion, and I'll break it down as follows. It was a pivotal moment for Minister Champagne to make the announcement that he did on June the 4th. As you know, for several months prior to that, there was a suspension of funding, which occurred in the fall of 2023. I have pulled the actual Government of Canada press release on that particular date, June the 4th. And his commentary, he was quoted actually in this particular document, and he indicates as follows, that effective immediately, so I read that to mean June the 4th of 2024, SDTC will also resume funding under a reinforced contribution agreement with ISED for eligible projects in a sector vital to our country's economy and clean growth transition. In line with the Auditor General's findings, my department will enhance oversight and monitoring of funding during the transition period. So we have a number of difficulties with that statement, and it requires clarification. I guess the first observation I would make in terms of resuming funding is I don't know if that's actually accurate. It may have occurred. There may be partial funding, but a full resumption of funding, I'm not so sure about that. And I raise these issues, Mr. Chair, because of an article that was produced yesterday, September the 4th, 2024, where a Peter MacArthur was quoted. And Peter MacArthur, for the record, is the chair of the Ontario Clean Technology Industry Association. And while he speaks about the impacts that the suspension had on the industry, what's quite noteworthy in this document, to this day, so effective September the 4th, 2024, to this day, MacArthur told the Toronto Star, the money has yet to start flowing again. Now, obviously, both versions of that statement can't be true at the same time. Is Mr. MacArthur in error? I don't think so, given his position in the industry. Is the minister in error? Is the minister trying to give the impression that all is well and lessons have been learned and a new setup is in place to restore confidence with Canadians with this particular program? We don't know. This isn't the first time where the integrity and the character of Minister Champagne has been put into question at this committee and other committees. We know that the whistleblower at SDTC, who ultimately resigned, was not fired, ultimately resigned, did not receive a compensation payout, did not receive any other bonuses, simply resigned. He's got nothing to lose. And he made it abundantly clear at committee. And again, I apologize, sir, if I can't be precise as to what committee he testified at. It could have been at industry. I could be mistaken. But he testified quite clearly that Minister Champagne lied. That he lied to committee, that he's lied to parliamentarians, that he's lied to Canadians in terms of when he first found out about the irregularities at SDTC.
Mr. Brock, I appreciate your tone and everything. If you could just avoid unparliamentary language.
Well, I'm not quoting, it's not for myself. I'm quoting the whistleblower.
All right.
The whistleblower quite clearly indicated that he lied.
All right.
It's not my words.
I'd ask you just to use some decorum here, please.
Sure. And we have evidence against this backdrop that has been produced in the last several weeks that an assistant deputy minister of Minister Champagne's department actually attended each and every board meeting at SDTC and clearly and should have brought all of these issues regarding the conflicts of interest to the attention of his deputy minister, who in turn reports directly to Minister Champagne. So to suggest that Minister Champagne only found out about the issues in the fall of 2023, I believe, is disingenuous. To further reinforce that point, Mr. Chair, we have the tape-recorded conversations of the Assistant Deputy Minister McConaughey, who didn't realize that he was recorded with the whistleblower. And McConaughey was very, very concerned, to the point, and I'm just paraphrasing, to the point of simply saying, the minister's going to freak out. Minister Champagne is going to freak out when he hears about what's going on at SDTC. He's going to want to shut it all down. Now, are we to believe, are Canadians expected to believe that the strong commentary from the Assistant Deputy Minister was not shared with the DM, was not shared with Minister Champagne? I think that's a pretty big stretch. So again, my words, Chair, not the words of the whistleblower. The integrity and character of Minister Champagne is clearly at issue here. What we also found out on Tuesday, and these were questions that I put to the representatives of the NRC, is they're not supervising, they're not monitoring what's going on currently at SDTC. They got nothing to do with it. So to our point that we made on Tuesday, Mr. Chair, is essentially the same old operations at SDTC with a new chair and 2 new directors. Now, I had questions to put to NRC officials, but I chose not to ask them because clearly they would have said to me, I'm sorry, Mr. Brock, we don't know that answer. And the question would have been, what are the reinforced terms of the contribution agreement? We know it's not listed anywhere on the ISED website. It's not listed anywhere on the SDTC website. So what does that mean, reinforced contribution agreement? We as parliamentarians, Mr. Chair, should have access to those agreements so that we can review the terms, determine are they consistent with the old contribution agreements that were so readily not followed. So that's a concern that we have that's reflected in the motion. The other issue is my department will enhance oversight and monitoring of funding. Well, what does that mean? We simply don't know. To what extent is the new chair and the new directors providing the appropriate governmental oversight to the same old SDTC? We simply don't know. So I think it's incumbent upon this committee, sir, to obtain those documents, to verify that they do exist, to determine and contrast and compare how it improves the oversight mechanism, how it provides assurances to Canadians that we're not going to go down the same old road of liberal insiders greasing their pockets again on the taxpayer dime. So I would hope that every committee member would certainly find favor in having access to documents so that we can discharge our respective responsibilities. What we need here is transparency. What we need here is accountability. And we all know that sunshine is the best antidote for transparency. So that's why I think this motion has merit, and I would encourage all my colleagues to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Khalid, I believe that's it.
Sorry, Chair, I wasn't sure if there were any hands raised from our virtual colleagues that that have joined us here today. I'm a little bit perplexed, Chair. You know, like, I mean, I would quote, you know, my colleague, and the number of times he said may. Well, may not. You know, whether it is one thing or the other. This seems a bit challenging for me. I'm not sure what the objective of this motion is. I'm not sure whether this is the right committee for this motion to be presented in. But what I do realize, and I read the motion right now, the press release issued by Minister Champagne announcing resumed funding to SDTC projects under reinforced contribution agreements signed with ISED. The committee orders the production of all such contribution agreements and that they be deposited with the clerk of the committee within 14 days following the adoption of this motion. That is probably one of the most vague motions that I've seen in a very long time, given the context of why we're here, what we're doing here. And I've seen so many of my colleagues over these years as a young liberal, as going through my law school and really actively participating in just keeping an eye over what happens in Canadian democracy. I remember past governments and conservative members, including their opposition leader, posing with massive checks with companies and saying, "Hey, look at what we did! Look at what we did!" And so I'm not sure if that's the angle that they're trying to get at. That members of parliament should not celebrate the success of industry, or should recuse themselves of money that is being doled out in positive ways. And again, I don't want to take away from the importance of the SDTC study that is going on here, because I do not agree with any wrongdoing in the use of taxpayer dollars. But at the same time, isn't it the objective of the Minister for Industry to promote Canadian industry? And as I said earlier, I'll pause while the Conservatives are conferring over there, perhaps, Chair.
No, I'll call them in order. Please don't pause.
I'm happy to pause,
no,
Chair.
we don't. No, pause will trigger a vote. So let's. Why don't you keep talking, and I will just ask them to move to the back of the hall if they're going to be disruptive.
Thank
Over
you,
to you,
Chair.
Ms. Clayton.
It is quite distracting when I can hear what they're saying just across the table here. And as I was saying, what is the objective of this motion here? Are we talking about vilifying the clean tech industry specifically? And I realize and understand and appreciate, with their three-letter word campaigns or three-word campaigns that they love to go on, are we vilifying the clean tech industry here? Are we going down a rabbit hole of producing all of these documents and all these contracts without setting any barriers, any boundaries? And I know I spoke earlier about this as well, to a number of points that Mr. Perkins had raised with respect to the purpose, with respect to why we are doing what we're doing here, with respect to creating that balance of ensuring that our clean tech sector is protected, that they are able to thrive, that they're able to continue to engage not just here in Canada with their research and development, and to ensure that we are leaders at the world stage, but also engaging with international organizations as well. And as I had indicated earlier, what are the dangers of vilifying an entire industry? Now, I know and understand that the majority of the Conservative Party votes come from Alberta, and they have a specific narrative that they want to go down. Let me make my point, Mr. Perkins. I really think that we need, in this instance, in this committee, to put partisan politics aside and say, look, folks, the clean tech industry is a growing one. We need to help it to grow. We need to make sure that small businesses, enterprises, entrepreneurial minds, and ideas are able to thrive, are able to grow, are able to ultimately help not only progress Canada's economy, but also deal with the climate change challenges that Canada has been facing, and not just Canada, because its implications are worldwide. So why are we picking on a minister who is trying to promote this industry here in Canada? Why are we trying to vilify an entire industry that is trying to thrive and set the stage for Canada? I think that's it's important for us to really reflect on the objectives of what this motion is really all about. And, you know, like, for example, I know that members opposite continue to call the SDTC a green slush fund. Well, the green in their term is important. Clean tech is relevant and important to Canada. It is relevant and important to the world. It is what our young people are innovating on and focusing on. And I think that we need to do justice to this growing industry. And that does not take away from the study that we've been conducting thus far. It does not take away from accountability, from transparency. But as I outlined earlier, by putting in these types of motions that have no purpose whatsoever other than to vilify the clean tech industry, it sets a stage for what the future of the clean tech industry is going to look like in Canada. We have seen, as I have said again and again in this committee, that the small businesses that are innovating, that are ensuring that we are progressing, that there's research, that there's development, that there's collaboration, not just here in Canada, but across the world. When we vilify an entire industry here in Canada, then we're doing our Canada an injustice here. And I can outline so many ways where that does not help clean tech, where that does not help Canadians, that does not help the people that are...
Excuse me, Ms. Killian, I have a point of order for Mr. Perkins.
I just would ask if the member could be relevant to the motion before us. And the motion before us is about releasing a contribution agreement. It isn't about anything to do with whether or not you support or don't support the green tech industry. It actually doesn't have anything to do with the Auditor General's report and the issue of the list of companies that inappropriately got money.
Thank you.
It's simply about
All right,
the contribution agreement.
Thank you,
so
Mr.
she can
Perkins.
stick to the relevance of the contribution
You will have an
agreements.
opportunity. Ms. Khalid is well within the universe of the motion, and I'll turn the floor back to Ms. Khalid.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for highlighting the universe of what this motion is, because I don't think that this has anything to do with the topic at hand. I think this has exactly what I was trying to say, the objective of the motion, as I, kind of try to put context together. It is to vilify the clean tech industry. And I don't think that's fair to Canada. I don't think it's fair to Canadians. When we go down the path of contribution agreements, etc., I'm so sorry, Mr. Perkins. I really can hear you across the chamber. It kind of throws me off of my thoughts. So if you can maybe speak a little bit quieter or in your mind, that would be really helpful. Thank you. And I will try to do the same out of respect for you, as I know that you care about the issues that we're talking about here. So, as I was saying, Chair, it's about going down a rabbit hole that is expanding and vilifying the clean tech industry here in Canada. I can cite so many instances where contribution agreements have been signed by previous governments. I think I remember Tony Clement as one of them, where so much happens, so much is done, and it's for the good, for the purpose of making sure that the clean tech industry, which is a thriving one, which is a growing one here in Canada, is able to strive. And again, I know that the Conservatives love to clip me and put out whatever it is. Again, I want to reiterate that this is not about holding government or government organizations or arms-length organizations to account. It is about going down a rabbit hole and to kill an entire sector. And I don't think that this motion fits into the spirit of what Canadian industry is about today. And I think I did go at length earlier to speak about small businesses that have suffered because of this vilifying of small business earlier. To say that what happens if, what may happen if, well, what if this, what if that? Well, what if clean tech is able to strive in Canada? What if clean tech becomes the industry that Canada relies on in the future within the G7, within dealing and fighting with climate change while also growing our economy? What if? Why are we trying to kill this industry here? And when I say we, I really mean the Conservative Party here, Chair. I think that this motion is a way to go down a rabbit hole of trying to really nuke what clean tech industry has to offer here in Canada. I think it is a way to create a negative rapport of small business, of research and development, of ensuring that Canada is pursuing and supporting what is going to be the future of all of our country from coast to coast to coast. So, when we do these production of documents, when we do find us this document, find us that document, absolutely parliamentarians have the privilege to request all of those, and as does this committee. But to what end? And why? Why is Parliament abusing and parliamentarians abusing their power? Why are we breaching our Constitution to force the RCMP to do what it is their prerogative to do? Why are we trying to dictate to the Auditor General what she should or should not study, which is her prerogative to do? Why are we trying to kill the clean tech sector. And that is exactly what I think that this motion is trying to represent here. Not to me, Chair. I'm not an expert in the clean tech sector by all means. But that is the message that we are sending to small businesses to say, look, guys, we don't want your business here. And if you try to come and do your business here, we are going to make sure that you come before us. We're going to haul you through the mud and make sure that you are not successful. What kind of message are we sending to that industry? What kind of message are we sending to those young people, especially those entrepreneurs that are trying to create an innovative field to not only try to enhance the economy here in Canada, but also trying to combat one of the biggest challenges of our time, and that is climate change. I think that we need to do better. I think that we need to take the partisan politics out of what the Conservatives are trying to do here and focus on the issue at hand. And this motion is not that at all. This motion is a blatant political play in trying to kill an entire industry. This motion is a blatant play in trying to expand and to really try to go down all of these rabbit holes to try to find something, anything that will vilify the clean tech sector. And I think that we cannot, as the Public Accounts Committee, we cannot and should not be responsible for its death. I think that the responsibility of this committee is to ensure that we are effectively using taxpayer dollars to the betterment of our country. And what this motion represents is the exact opposite of that. So I'll stop there for a second, Chair, and I would like to get back onto the bottom of the list. Thanks, Chair.
There's so much. I believe Mr. Perkins is first. But if that's not the case, every one of your colleagues wants to speak to it. So well, you gave a look as if you had nothing to say, Mr. Perkins, and I know that is probably an impossibility. So the floor is yours.
I'll be quick and give my colleagues a chance to add in, but I'll just point out that while heartfelt, the last statement really had nothing to do with the issue before us, and the issue before us has nothing to do with this bizarre claim. Oh, I can hear you. The issue before us is the issue. Just hang on.
Hypocritical.
That's okay. That's okay, Larry. The issue before us is the question of the government releasing the secret documents of the contribution agreements that lay out where SDTC can and cannot spend money. It is those documents that are the basis of the Auditor General's report. They're what the Auditor General used to see whether or not $58 million out of the small sample was misspent or not. So that hasn't got to do with every clean tech company that exists in Canada. Every clean tech company in Canada has not applied for money through the Liberal Green Slush Fund. Only a few select ones that are attached to well-connected Liberals got the money. 82%, according to the Auditor General's report. So the issue that's before us isn't the broad public policy discussion on how best to grow our clean technology company. It's about why does the government want to hide the contribution agreements? Why do Liberals want to hide the contribution agreements that lay out the restrictions on the Green Slush Fund, on what it can and cannot spend, the $1 billion that this minister gave it, and the $22 billion that this organization has spent of taxpayer money since its inception in 2001. That's what this is about. It's about just simply saying, show us the documents. Show us the documents so that we can judge the report correctly that the Auditor General presented to this committee. I thought it would be incumbent upon this committee in its role of scrutinizing Auditor General reports to get access to the documents that the Auditor General report is based on. But the government seems intent on trying to hide that too.
No, I do have a list running here, and first I have Mr. Brock.
I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mr. Cooper.
Very good, Mr. Cooper.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and with the greatest respect to my colleague, Ms. Khaled, opposite, who repeatedly referenced going down rabbit holes, the only member going down rabbit holes is Ms. Khaled, because for, 10, 15 minutes, she talked about everything under the sun other than the motion at hand. I think she even went so far as to say that she disagreed with the findings of the Auditor General with respect to the misuse of taxpayer dollars. $390 million that went out the door improperly, including $330 million that were funneled directly into companies in which SDTC board members have contribution agreements with. Ms. Khaled complains that the green tech sector is being impacted as a result of the freezing of funds. Well, those funds were frozen because of liberal corruption. So she should respectfully look at the record of her government, because it is her government and her government's corruption that is directly led to the freezing of funds once the minister got caught turning a blind eye to all of the corruption that was taking place at SDTC. And the arrogance and the utter disrespect for Canadian taxpayers to say, in the face of 186 conflicts of interest, in the face of $400 million that went improperly out the door, but somehow it's too much to ask for some basic transparency on the part of the minister, who said that he was going to see during this transition that there would be enhanced oversight and monitoring. What is that enhanced oversight and monitoring? The minister hasn't said. We don't know. We need to find out. Is there, in fact, enhanced oversight and monitoring, or are those just words from the minister that haven't been followed through in the way of action? Is it too much to ask when the minister says that his department is resuming funding, that funding would be resumed through so-called reinforced contribution agreements, to see exactly what those contribution agreements look like? You know, the minister issues this release on June 4th saying, I'm taking action. We're going to have more oversight, more monitoring, reinforced contribution agreements, in which would involve taxpayer money going out the door. Well, after this $400 million colossal web of liberal corruption, as we get to the bottom of what the heck is going on, I don't think it's too much to ask to see what those agreements look like, to see what follow-through has actually been done as the government proceeds to transfer over this green slush fund to the National Research Council. We know the minister hasn't even bothered to pick up the phone or sit down with the president of the National Research Council. That's how much interest this minister, who time and again has been AWOL on the job, I guess as he works to succeed the captain of the Titanic, the prime minister, to become the Liberal leader, but that's a whole other issue. And so in face of all that, Ms. Khaled says this motion is about killing the green tech sector. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with providing accountability and transparency that has been completely lacking, notwithstanding the minister saying, I'm taking action on June 4th. Well, what action has the minister taken? We need to find out.
And I'm taking action on behalf of the committee. This meeting is adjourned for resources reasons. Thank you.